Hello, everyone. This is David Ellis again, and I am with Amir Jahangiri. And what we are going to be doing today is exposing systems of domination and control. This is going to be a very, very important episode because I had an interaction with an esoteric group earlier on today and most of yesterday. And I actually want to show you guys what the interaction was and how it developed. We're also going to be looking at that same documentary we were looking at, and we're going to be showing you a rather disturbing trend that's happening where people are willing to put their health at risk to gain power, to gain health, to gain any amount of things. It's really really sad, and what we're trying to do right now is give you guys enough information so that you are well prepared when it is that you meet charlatans, people that are trying to drain you of your financial resources, people that are trying to drain you of your energy. We talked about energy vampires last time. So Amir, just give the audience a little bit of a heads up as to some of the stuff we talked about and what we'll be going into today.
Thank you, David. Ladies and gentlemen, my warmest greetings to you. I hope you're all in perfect health and perfect mood. Tonight's going to be a big one. So we're talking about the mechanics and the logistics of the system of domination and control. So like any con game, any confidence game, there are common themes and threads that if you're aware of, you're not going to willingly step into. So we're going to have a look at some of these common themes and threads and storylines that happen to countless people in different centuries, including our current one. So the game doesn't change. And I hope you're going to enjoy what we have for you tonight. It's going to be a big one, I can tell you right now.
Yes, it is, because what we're going to be doing is exposing systems of domination and control. And what we're going to be doing is showing you what people are willing to give in order to seek power over enlightenment. Okay, there are a lot of people who are out there who are part of a cult or whatever, who have given their complete will over to their masters. And I call them your masters because you're a slave to their will. And so tonight, we're going to be dispelling a lot of that stuff. Trigger warning. If you're one of those people who likes following people, if you are one of those people who likes being a sheep and derives pride out of being a sheep, whether you call yourself a devotee, this is not what the original term devotee meant. It absolutely isn't. Okay? But we're going to be getting into that. Trigger warning. You are going to be offended by this. You might get annoyed, you might get triggered, and then you might have to think that maybe we have a point. After all the annoyed, after all the triggered, you still will have to concede that we may have a point. I'm going to put my headphones on right now and we're going to get into it. So first thing, I'm going to start off with the usual. We're going to just look at a little bit of clip that I have queued here for you, and then we will get into it immediately. So first of all, let me just share my screen.
Even the shaman's power.
So we take it up from here.
Shaman Durig goes to his next appointment. The main reason for the success of his business is that in California, being happy is seen as an obligation. This trickles down even to the buying of produce. At 29 years old, Caitlin is a young woman in prime health. Every morning, however, she ingests 15 different powders, depending on how she is feeling that day. Dietary supplements and other products, the origins of which are seemingly unknown.
Okay, I need to stop it. That was pretty gross. That was pretty good, gross. I take it from a guy who works out and has used supplements before. That was pretty gross. Nope, like your mouth is not a blender. But anyway.
Thank you.
Okay, Any thoughts so far, Amir?
Oh, yes, I'm thinking that even if the substances she's ingesting are perfect in their raw form, and all of the esteemed audience will know that in order to turn them into the final product, many, many chemicals are included. Now, in small doses, they may be less harmful, but again, look at the volume that she's taking in. So, with, let's say, supposedly good stuff, there's a lot of garbage, a lot of toxic stuff she's taking in very large quantities. So, immediately, that's a big problem. Overloading the system with the solid particles that aren't part of the medicine that form the powder or the pills. That's way too much. That's excessive.
I'm going to put this in an analogy. Too much of a good thing is always a bad thing. Too far east is always west. You got creatine monohydrate, which is a load on your liver. Your liver has to clean your system of the byproducts of that. You got all sorts of different supplements here. A lot of people do live like that. And once again, this is California where happiness is seen as a obligation. So I want to just get into this because honestly speaking, this is about to get a lot worse. Let's just continue.
Having a healthy body and a healthy mind is an essential part of creating a spiritual connection with your reality.
There is a product which she values above all others, and its side effects require a little preparation.
Just getting some buckets out here to get them ready for our participants.
She discovered it 5 years ago and has been sharing it with as many people as possible ever since.
When the buckets start coming out, you need to be worried, right? But anyway.
That's a new one, David.
Sort of stash your stuff either like under there or just close to a wall. Just make sure this bathroom journey area is...
Preparation is essential, given the uncontrollable effects that the product triggers. For these private sessions, Caitlin charges €90 per person.
I feel a little bit...
Well, I guess any fears would be, I guess, getting like
Define hard.
I guess that would be fear, because that would be my worst fear.
The product is called Kembo.
This is the magic potion, the magic frog sweat.
It's a poisonous substance extracted from a frog from the Amazon rainforest, which is applied to the skin. The ritual was originally used by the native Indians in South America as part of their purification ceremonies.
There's hundreds of peptide molecules in here that are potently antimicrobial, anti-cancerous, anti-inflammatory. It seems to kind of get at the core of how our spirit can interact with our body chemically and reset the patterning of disease and trauma.
What does that mean?
Oh my goodness. Can we stay on the subject for a bit? So there's something she said that in order to have a successful spiritual connection, you must have a healthy body.
She never met Gandhi. She has never met a whole bunch of...
Absolutely. So what if you're ill and you use your spiritual gifts to heal yourself? In fact, that's one of the reasons. If you get ill, you use the power of your spirit to repair the body. But that's a problematic beginning. And again, they're using poison from a frog. That's let's forget that it's dangerous.
I am familiar with what they're using there. Okay. My ancestors used to use it on my father's side. Okay, that stuff will mess you up, not in a good, like really mess you up. Okay, so the voodoo people, what they used to do was extract that, it's from the sweat glands of a frog. Okay, you will notice that the frog doesn't have too many natural predators. No, nothing in nature wants to eat a frog for a very good reason. For a very good reason. Anyway, she is taking that poison from a frog. The Carib Indians used to dip their arrows in what she's using to paralyze and kill whatever it is that they were hunting. This lady has no idea. She is not a naturopath. I think for something like this, you probably need a medical degree, right? She is allocating dosages, and we're about to see what happens next.
Ariana, age 34, is severely unwell and is taking a large dose of combo for it.
Naturally healing myself from thyroid cancer, and I carry myself emotional has a lot to do with my body as well. So I need to emotionally heal myself so I can tap into the physical healing as well.
After a little burning to expose the flesh, the toxic substance is spread over the wound.
Oh my God.
Oh, that's messed up.
Oh.
The effects are immediate.
Oh my God.
Good, Viva. Nice work.
Wow.
This purge lasts almost an hour.
What's that? Okay. Slowly. We're taking deep breaths. There's a bucket in there.
The participants are exhausted. For Ariana, the effects are concentrated on the face.
My face felt like it's swelled up, like my lips got huge, and my throat was just all, I turned like into a frog.
The reaction will last an hour for Ariana, but the positive effects of combo for her cancer are questionable, and the consequences on her health can be extremely severe. The risks are serious: violent spasms, increased heart rate, memory loss.
Yeah, it has a really outwardly violent and extreme sort of appearance. Really? And I think for a lot of people that is scary. But you just saw how far people are willing to go.
Yes, that's correct.
People with illnesses that
you just saw how far people are willing to go.
Aren't getting better. They're not getting the help they need.
Even after several hundred sessions, Caitlin claims to have never experienced a serious incident. Is this quest for well-being at all costs at the expense of good health? Certain movements are even more toxic than combo and can sometimes lead to suicide.
Okay, I think we've seen enough of this. So,
pretty much, yeah.
Amir, what is your reaction to all of that?
Okay, so first of all, it's pretty disturbing. And again, esteemed audience, I know that you would probably be also disturbed if it's the first time you're seeing such a thing. But again, there's a method behind the madness. So we're exposing you to this for a purpose. Now, I'd like to go back to the origins of such methods. So you would have yogis in India also drinking cobra venom, or you would have different tribes in the Amazon sniffing a combination of dried herbs, hape or ape, which is also known to induce vomiting and purging. But I think that the purpose of that, first of all, is a cleanse, but the whole thing is conducted incorrectly. So the ritual part of it is not there. That spiritual part of it is not there. So it's like taking chemotherapy medication recreationally. It's madness. The place is actually filthy. What's happening is very, very dirty. People cut themselves when they have psychological problems. I don't believe any of these people are healthy. And somebody in their right mind would take one look at the setting before anything begins and say, okay, this place is filthy. I'm out of here. So that's my first thoughts on this.
Honestly, I looked at this and I'm like, the dosages that she is putting on these people are way above the dosages that are normally used. That venom that she's using is so potent. You don't make little clumps of it, right? You there's actually a little swab. You just touch that area, and the effects are immediate. So I know a little bit about this stuff. As I said, my ancestors used to use stuff like that. That stuff can wipe your entire memory clean. What she's using there will damage you in terms of your psyche and in terms of your body in a permanent way. And the dosages that she's using are kind of big. Okay, she burned these people several times, not once, several times. She burned them several times to put that stuff on them. And yes, it's going to be violent, and yes, it's going to be pretty bad. It's kind of like people deciding, oh, I'm a shaman after a weekend course and mixing ayahuasca and dosing people with it. This is a huge problem. It has caused a lot of problems in the esoteric community over the last, what, 5 or 6 years? And especially in the last 2 years, people, the ayahuasca ceremonies have grown. And you guys need to be very careful who you are going to. The person has to have a background in shamanism, shaman strain, for over 20 years, right? Before they can comfortably practice. So you got to be very careful when it is that you're making judgments as to what is pseudoscience and what is not pseudoscience. But this, what I'm looking at there are a number of things wrong here which are problematic. They are problematic. These people, like the lady with thyroid cancer, she has no idea how that poison is going to interact with what's going on in her body. But I can tell you, she looked, when she spoke, she sounded like she was on chemotherapy medication. The body does not need any more toxicity when you're on chemotherapy medication. So there's a number of things that's problematic, and the healer in that little video that we just showed you is really irresponsible, because at least like have a disclaimer, at least have a disclaimer. But that doesn't happen, and so this is the kind of stuff that we are actually trying to rail against. But we're going to get into this, the systems of domination and control. I don't know whether I should cut away to my conversation with one of our esteemed esoteric groups. Let me give you a little bit of a background. I am a member of ISIS, a chartered member. You don't know what that is, but it's a connection point for all the lodges. I made sure when I was interacting with the Brotherhood and the secret societies and the mystery schools that I was not going to join any of them. I was in it for the knowledge and the metaphysics. I was not in it to join your little social club. This is what has happened over the last few years. Over the last few years, the old guard, I call them the old guard of the lodges, have sought to keep their power. These guys are in their 70s, their 80s, and they still want to exercise control over all the lodge members. And then there are annoying upstarts like me who do not believe that the knowledge should be conscribed to men, first of all, alone, or what they call enlightened beings. That is nonsense. It is arrogant. And there are a lot of things that are wrong with this practice. This practice started with me talking to a grandmaster of a lodge. You don't know what a lodge is, a mystery school, what y'all call secret societies, if you don't know what that is. The discussion went something like this: I would like to start teaching. I have a charter from ISIS. I don't care about whether I'm teaching the rituals of Freemasonry or the Martinists or the Knights Templar. I think all of the teachings are valid. Some of them come from Egypt, some of them come from all societies. And the response was, why would you want to throw pearls before swine? This was the response. This is where this started. Now, I didn't know in 2021 people still said these things. So I kind of like was taken aback. But this is an actual response that was given to me. very annoying. The good thing about it is that I don't answer to these people. And so they have no say as to what I do or not do because I'm not part of their society. I was the registrar for a lot of them, but I'm not part of their society. And it's not through lack of trying to get me to join their little clubs. So I don't answer to them. I belong to a number of these secret societies, private groups online. Yes, secret societies have Facebook groups. Can you believe it? But you see, I could sit here and riff with you guys about what not to do and when you're joining a society or whatever the case may be. Some of y'all would have been approached by members of the lodge and you're trying to decide whether or not to join them or not. Let me help you. You don't have to. If it's esoteric knowledge you're seeking, we will be teaching it and I will be making it available to all. Okay? And I'll tell you why I'm going to do that. I am going to do that for the following reasons. If it is that your function and the media stuff that you put out is that you are trying to create men of excellence, and they're very specific men, to this day, it's 2021, men of excellence, then you keeping knowledge secret and hiding in the shadows is by definition not an excellent thing to do. You can't teach excellence if you yourself aren't excellent. Here's the second thing that I want to say. And these are the kinds of arguments that I've been having. The second thing that I want to say is that when it comes to making statements like pearls before swine, it means that you think that you're elite. There's actually, and I'm going to say it, they actually have a word for people who are not initiated. They call them profane. If you code this into your mind, if you become a lodge member, you code this stuff into your mind. What happens to you is that you have contracted an STD from the lodge, spiritually transmitted disease, which Amir coined. I love that phrase. It means that you're arrogant. It means that you don't know what you're speaking about and you don't understand there's nothing new underneath the sun. Okay? Knowledge is expressed, not oppressed. Henry Kunraf said that. Okay? So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to share my conversation. I've blocked out the individual's name because I joined this group, because I can join the group. But this is what happened in the group. I'm going to show you right now. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to get into it right now. And we are going to, can you guys see can you see my screen, Amir?
Yep.
So this is the individual who is speaking to me. I have blocked out his name. This is his background. He is the past master provincial grand lodge officer, former DC, former preceptor of LOI. I'll explain all of that later. It's not necessary. It's just names. Okay. Excellent companion in Holy Royal Arch, Knight Templar, and Knight Templar of Malta. Okay. Now all of these are just lodge designations. So all that means in sort of condensed way is that he's a mid-ranged lodge member. That's all that means. Past master doesn't necessarily mean he's high. Grand master is high. Let's move on. Let me tell you what he's responding to here. What he's responding to there is that I put a call to action out to the lodge members. The lodge members, I asked, are any of you willing to come out of hiding, come into the light, come on this show that I am producing in order to show the world that the lodge is not 100% bad? Because the truth of the matter is there are some very good people in there who believe in excellence. They believe in becoming all that they can be as men and as human beings. This individual felt threatened by that. He's a group expert. And I want you to understand what a group expert is. It means that he is being recognized as a group expert, the person that you go to for information. So when I put out that call to action, what I said was, could you guys come onto the show and show people that Freemasonry Martinism, and all these other paths are not some dark, arcane, weird stuff, like where you rape babies and stuff like that, because that's what it's being portrayed as in popular culture. So this is this guy. Okay, he says, just be careful, always conceal, never reveal. You have taken an oath. This is the first engagement that I have with this individual because we're going to go through it. This is my response to him. Yes, this is his name. I had to block it out. Yes, I am aware, brother. This is why. This is why is more in the way of people's positive experiences being part of the organization to push back the negative publicity which the lodge has been receiving from people misappropriating symbols and ideology. I think another perspective needs to be shown. Now, what I was referring to there is there are people that just take lodge symbols and they just throw them anywhere, right? It's on the dollar bill, so I suppose it's a popular symbol. You got the all-seeing eye, you got pentacles, you got hexagrams, you have tetragrammatons, you have a whole bunch of other symbols that are being misappropriated. People don't know what they mean. They just look cool. And so they throw it out there. So I'm speaking to him in the way of trying to assist the public relations issue with the lodge. And I still maintain that there are people out there who are really, really good people. Okay, let us move on. This is his response to me. David Ellis, is that not why we have grand lodges? So the message is always on point and conforms to the core values of our jurisdiction. And that he wanted to say jurisdiction here, right? Different nations may have different views and could spread differing views to our leadership teams. They are there to do a job, just let them get on with it. So, what he's telling me is to don't do what I intend to do. Don't give the lodge any publicity. I should actually just let the leadership teams and other teams handle it because they want their message to be on point. Well, this is where you're going to lose me. Some respect is being lost here. Because if you can do, and if you can't, stay silent. But this individual is speaking to me from a position that he thinks is superiority when he actually isn't. Okay, but that's beside the point. Let me move on here. And I answered him in respect. No, brother, I am not speaking about false information in the brotherhood. I'm speaking about false information in popular culture, as of the latest scandal with Jack Murphy and his use of society symbology to spread a less than favorable light. We are the unwitting victims of false branding, and this is and has affected the lodge adversely. Meaning the following. There was a guy called Jack Murphy. I don't know if you guys are familiar with what has happened. He is part of what these Americans call the manosphere. And it's basically a very toxic culture where they teach men how to interact with women more like control women. How to be a man is what he was pushing. But he had this group called the Liminal Order. And gee, where would he get the idea to make a man group and call it a liminal order? And he used the all-seeing eye to forward this kind of poisonous take on how men should be men and masculinity and all that. That this is what he was preaching. So what I am talking to the brother here about is how this kind of stuff is giving the lodge and all of them a bad reputation. But let's continue because doesn't go on for very much longer. David Ellis, I don't want to be disrespectful to you, but this is exactly the reason why Grand Lodges have communication teams spreading a common message. I have never heard of Jack Murphy, so unable to directly comment on him, albeit I am now interested. But many men before him and probably many others now are all giving false information. It is our duty to ignore these cowards. He called them cowards. Anyway, never mind. And allow our grandmasters to develop the way we counteract them. As I work in one of the leadership teams, I know is what he wants to say there, how easy it is for individuals to disrupt a team's work by inappropriately putting out not a wrong message, but the message the wrong way. I know sometimes the responses may seem slow, but we have been around for a long time, and a few, but we have been around for long, and a few individuals won't stop us. Tell me more about Jack. This is where this conversation comes to an abrupt halt. And I say an abrupt halt because this is where I will lose my patience with this individual completely, and I no longer have the will to answer. Because if he wants to know about Jack Murphy and he's on a leadership team, he should have known that this was a scandal that was going to blow up in the largest face. So, a number of things are going on there, but Amir, I'm going to let you jump in first of all.
Okay. So everything that we've shown you and everything we've spoken about ties together really nicely. So I'd like to address the esteemed members of such organizations, from the very foundation to the very peak of their pyramid. And I address you with humility and respect, and I humble myself before you. Please just hear my words. What you're doing is like withholding penicillin or the technology to produce clean drinking water. And as a result, there is unimaginable suffering that you can prevent. You're like the corrupt kings of an African nation who rides in a Mercedes while his fellow countrymen don't have shoes. Forget shoes, they don't have food to eat. So that is not a very enlightened way to conduct oneself. So the light that you hold, if it is true, it will preserve itself. For where there is light, there cannot be darkness. Hiding in the shadow is not protecting the light. Let it shine upon the all, and let the light judge who is worthy, the natural order of the universe. So in your glorious traditions, which have been safeguarded by noble people, noble human beings throughout history, reaching this point in time, things have gotten lost. Like what it is you're protecting and what the purpose of that glorious thing is. So shine. Why hide? Shine. Because when you don't, we see the effects on people searching for that glorious light and actually harming themselves. As enlightened beings, you cannot wash your hands of the responsibility of what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Look at these poor, desperate people who are searching for what you hold mundanely, because once you have, let's go to the example of the clean drinking water. How many of you thank the tap when you open and clean water comes out? More people have died in our species' history from polluted drinking water than any other cause. But once it's there, you forget to appreciate it. Well, there are people dying from this. So you're preserving the light from the shadow, but shadow is all around you.
There are a number of things to unpack in my exchange with the brother, the esteemed brother. One of the things that there is to unpack is the idea that every member of the lodge is supposed to wait on a team to push back the negative constructs. So that makes everybody, it's a hierarchical structure where you believe people are underneath you. That's the first problem. Very problematic. The second problem involves the fact that you feel that you need to put out a unified message. If your message is like when you take the suspects of a crime into custody, if they are telling the truth, the stories will match. They may have variances, but the stories will match. So what are you afraid of there? So I am supposed to, if I was a member of that particular lodge, keep my mouth shut and wait for you to handle it? Well, that doesn't seem very smart. That doesn't seem like I have much of a will. That doesn't seem like I have much of a choice. It seems like I may have ceded my voice and my expression over to you. Problematic. Very, very problematic. Number three, the tone in which this individual was speaking to me, I assume that's the tone that he speaks to people who are neophytes of his organization, which I am absolutely not. Annoys me. I assume that's the tone that he's speaking to me. Like, do not.
What you're told.
Correct. And clearly, that's not going to come up across well. Neophytes in the organization actually take direction from exchanges like this, and they keep silent and they do whatever they are told. David is made out of a different material. My sovereignty is mine. I will speak. The third thing that is, the fourth thing is the complete unawareness, the lack of awareness that y'all have a bad reputation in the Western world. You absolutely do. There were lodge members that were responsible for ghastly things. And like the Vatican, you tried to cover them up.
Exactly what I was thinking also. Yeah.
You tried to cover them up, right? There is no public relations. The best public relations is to say the truth. We had a member, he went rogue, he did a lot of shit, and we're really, really sorry. That is the best policy, honesty. Covering shit up is not cool. There are a lot of lodge members that are ill behaved, but you try to protect them when it is that they do stupid shit. Sorry, I'm going to use a lot of French here. And that means that you are not different from how the Vatican operates. But you think you are because you have knowledge that the Vatican does not. And that's not true either. Because a lot of you, your origins are from the Vatican, and you know it. So that's the other thing that I want to say. The third thing that I mean, there's so many things that are problematic that actually drive me insane about these organizations. It drives me insane because I've had to deal with stupidity on a whole different level. You are completely unaware that you have a bad reputation. People don't trust you all. And to be quite honest with you, Amir, a lot of the older members like it that way because when you're in the shadows, people don't know what to expect, but the fear that they have of you because of your reputations in the past is significant. And here's the thing. When I thought about doing this broadcast, I spoke to people and so on, and they told me, David, aren't you afraid that the lodge will come after? No, I am not. This is not 1600s. I am not. Okay. And I already told Amir, they can only kill you once. So as we sit here, right, I tell you this without fear. The lodge is not as strong as they used to be. It has been conscribed now to a social club where the people at the top are the actual practitioners of spirituality, and the people at the bottom, they just go in it for the social club. Because a lot of people think that the lodge has a lot of esoteric power. No, the lodge has a lot of material power. A lot of them. Because what used to happen back in the day in terms of Freemasonry, they used to collect people from the bottom of the social ladder because these were true seekers of the light. But they changed policy somewhere in the last couple of 100 years. And what is happening? They want to get people in positions of power, okay, that could move and change things, like the Vatican. And so we have a situation where you have a bunch of people with a bunch of ego issues, okay? Like the individual who was talking to me in that text message exchange, with a bunch of ego issues who think that they're large and in charge of something. And the people who are outside who don't know, because they don't know what you're gonna fear what you don't know. You're gonna fear what you don't know. What do they do inside there? Are they going to put a hex on me, etc.? Listen, don't be afraid of these lodges. Don't, because it's been that way for years now, and they are not the same as they used to be. They're not as powerful as they used to be, and they know it. And a lot of them, and I'm not saying all of them, but there are certain lodges that deliberately seek power. And that is not what a mystery school was about. This is not what Plato started. This is not what was started. This is not what it's about. It was supposed to be organizations that made men excellent. And excellent means that you were a good husband, you were kind and good to your community, you had excellent character, and you dealt fairly in business. I don't know how this thing could have gone so horribly wrong, Amir. I don't know how.
Okay,
And you know what hurts
I have,
me?
I have some ideas about where the corruption comes from.
Please, let's
Well,
hear it.
you mentioned Plato. Let's look at the Greeks and the Romans. Now, of course, they may claim to be the source of it all, but many of us know that that is a falsity.
Mm-hmm.
They all went and studied at the feet of the great masters in Egypt. And I'm not saying that the ancient Egyptians didn't make mistakes, but at some time they had this idea of integrity, meaning somebody who wanted to join their mystery schools, like the Great Temple in Karnak, at some point you couldn't just show up with a bag of gold and they welcome you in. Absolutely not. In some instances, people had to wait for 20 years just to enter the temple. So before they could vouch for your integrity, you were not welcome to the teachings, because with knowledge comes power. And if you don't have integrity, you're just going to cause destruction, unnecessary suffering. So at any point in history, any organization that forgets integrity, it's going to be infiltrated by the shadow. So to all the esteemed members, the honored human beings in these organizations, look to your left and to your right. And again, you're an assistant that's got many levels. Look above and below. Can you vouch for the integrity of everybody around you? That's exactly the problem David is talking about. And the answer is going to be no. Not all of these people are of high integrity. They fall to the distractions and temptations that should not occur for somebody in that sort of position of power. Now, if there's no internal mechanism to root out these kind of individuals, if there's no mechanism to check the integrity, personality, motivations of these individuals, then you're all equally part of the whole thing, because you're part of a system that you have made an oath to protect. So now you're all swimming in the same dirty bathwater, drinking of the same polluted potion.
And we don't need to go very far with that. Hippocrates, the father of modern medicine, was a large member, just so that we're clear. Okay? Imagine if Hippocrates says, I've taken an oath, always conceal, never reveal. You know do you know where we would be right now? Pythagoras, mystery school student. If Pythagoras says, oh, always conceal, never reveal, and to a certain extent he did conceal a lot of his stuff because people think it's all about triangles and squares, right, and angles. To this day, oh my God, right? So imagine if he says, always conceal, never reveal. Look, in our history, and I'm talking about Western esoterics, because the problem is that we have people in the Western world running all over to India and China to learn esoteric fundamentals and principles. And there's a body of knowledge that exists in the West. Fine, it was misappropriated, and fine, it was stolen and whatever else, but we made the best with what we had. And there it's being held from people in the West. So people in the West can't learn their own esoteric history. They can't learn the practices, the rituals, or whatever else. And whenever there has been an attempt inside the lodge to try to disseminate information, the higher members of the lodge has always shut it down. That is a statement of fact. I'm not even going to try to defend that statement. It is a statement of fact. Every lodge brother listening to this broadcast knows this for certain. My experience has been that what was happening in a lot of the lodges is that you had people who were higher up, but they needed, let's talk energetically here, they needed batteries. And so they got neophytes to join the lodge because even if somebody could be dumb as a bucket of rocks, but as long as they're a human being, they can be trained to be an efficient battery, like the Matrix, like that. And so they needed batteries, and so they got these neophytes and they kept them down. They kept them down in terms of knowledge. They deliberately manipulated the degrees on purpose to stop people from advancing. This is not something I am just talking off the top of my head. I look, a lot of lodges practice this. And so one of the things that they never wanted to happen was younger people getting charters because we have a different and progressive idea. And so when a younger person gets a charter, what happens is that the whole enclave of that particular lodge comes down and that person tries to restrict that person this way, that way, and this way. And when I say younger person, I don't mean someone who's 20 years old. Younger person in this construct means 50 years old, between 45 and 50 years old. That's what it means. And so they try to restrict that person from now until doomsday. And this, the oath of always conceal, never reveal. I understand if it operated back in the 16th century because you would be killed for stuff like that.
Yes.
We are living in 2021. To this day, your reason for not teaching women is that they may not have the emotional control required to do ritualistic practice. Did witchcraft? Do you know the name Gerald Gardner by any chance?
Perhaps I read his book not too long ago, Gardnerian Book of Shadows. Yes.
Right. This man had the right idea. He absolutely did. I love this man. Okay? He taught women an updated form of witchcraft. Very difficult to get into that denomination of the craft because he wants people of character. But he did not discriminate in terms of, oh, you're a woman, you might get emotional and throw the ritual off. Give me a break. A lot of these guys in the lodge are afraid of feminine power. They don't know what to do with it. They're afraid.
Absolutely. And David, if I may just quickly jump in.
Sure, jump in.
Exactly the point that you just made, fear of women. Now, in a healthy, functional society, no matter your gender, as a human being, whether female or male, you have equal rights and responsibilities. We're different, absolutely. But the words divine masculine and divine feminine are thrown around so much.
Oh,
but
God.
here, in point of fact, is the correct use of this: the suppression of divine femininity. Fear of that. Because let me tell you something, if there were a few more females, few more powerful women in lodges, half of this doo-doo that's going on would never be allowed.
Correct. Absolutely. Because there would be balance. I'm going to say something that is going to be very controversial. You cannot teach a man to be excellent without the influence of feminine energy. You absolutely cannot. He will be half excellent. And so probably less than.
Fully crazy.
Right.
We've got, let's look at the Spartans. They took them away from their mothers and they turned into berserkers, crazy people. The way a mother can nourish the child and teach them wisdom,
compassion,
and integrity, if that's done correctly in childhood, that's the role of a good mother. And I praise all mothers for that role that they have. And in this day and age, it's not an easy thing to raise your kid with integrity. Now take away the mother and have male brutality, war, combat, conflict.
And I want to say a
martial
few
arts.
things there. Wherever there is a boys' club or men's club, there is dysfunction. The Knights Templar, the Vatican, I'm going to say it. Knights Templar, the Vatican, the Spartans. Yeah? Wherever you take boys away from feminine influence or divine feminine influence, and you host them in this sort of charge, you have people turning out crazy as shit, doing a lot of damage.
Yes, yes.
And what my main problem is with all of this is that to this day, we still have this gender divide in the esoteric community. Nobody's reaching out because on the women's side, that's also a problem as well. But let's talk about the women's system of control. You have women's groups that prey on women, broken women, as a means of getting them to become more in touch with themselves. And they say, oh, you have to accentuate the divine feminine and become more embodied. Wow, that really does annoy me sometimes.
It hits you in the heart, you know?
That really does annoy me sometimes. And you could say that, oh, I'm that word that I'm never supposed to say, triggered. But anyway, right? The reason why that is because you're assuming that that person lacks embodiment. But no, what you mean is the person lacks awareness that they are already embodied. That I can absolutely buy. Don't tell me that that person is disembodied. It might be dissociative. They're not out of touch with their bodies. They are very much in touch with their bodies. They just don't know that they are. Okay, so if you're building awareness, then that's fine. That's absolutely fine. But a lot of people try to make people believe that they're not in control or they don't have this power and that power. And the only way to get it is by joining our club. For my entire life, I have stayed away from clubs, whether it be men clubs or whatever clubs. I stay away from clubs. The reason why that is has a lot to do with some dysfunction in my childhood. My father always said, nothing good ever happens in a crowd. He used to say that. And that's not exactly true, but for a lot of the time, it is absolutely true. As by my experience, nothing good always ever happens in a crowd because the crowd influences the people in it. And you have to
trust. Takes one idiot.
It just takes one idiot to spread the craziness throughout the group. And so you have a lot of women's groups that are headed by women who have several divorces. Let's try that again. When you are joining a women's group, my sisters who are listening to this, when you're joining a women's group, please look at the leader of that group. Analyze for yourself and think for yourself. This individual probably doesn't like men, or does she like men? Does this individual have a stable relationship if she's going to be talking to you about your relationship and what you should do in your relationship? Or does she have a string of divorces behind her and then she's going to advise you how to fix your marriage and your relationship? You have to think critically. And I beg you, it's not just all about the embodiment practices. Does this individual, how we come back to the basics, what we said in our first broadcast, how does it make you feel? Is it helping you? Is your relationship better? Are you relating to the man in your life better? Or is the answer that you are being given, get rid of the man in your life? These are the things that you have to think about for your own self. And a lot of people don't do this because you may be hurt and you may be broken from a relationship. But what you don't need is to make your situation worse.
Absolutely. So we've touched on men's clubs and women's clubs. And without the balancing effect of the other side, both become distorted. Men towards violence and aggression and domination, and women towards bitterness, over-sexualization, and also aggression. So they both become polarized. They become extremists. While if this is done correctly, so there's no reason that you would forget the influence of your mother when she would loving you tell you off and say, get the hell out of here, stop doing what you're doing. Or the same way, the way your father would care for you and protect you and say, okay, young boy, young girl, none of that. And they would just have to say it once and you would listen. And both of these actions are done out of love towards balance. Otherwise, we get this kind of extreme behavior. Men in power, abusing their power, and becoming sexual offenders, serial, repeated offenses. On the other side, there's no exception. In these kind of hierarchical systems, women also become the same, victimizing younger men and younger women, older men, older women. Makes no difference. It's the same illness. So what's the cure? Okay, let me tempt you with what you got into these organizations for in the first place. What all these poor men and women suffering from the toxic frog poison that we saw at the first of the show are in it for. The light. Okay, so you may think the light has been dangled in front of you like a carrot in front of a horse tied to a carriage. And you're being used to your power, your essence, your energy, your servitude, and servitude it is being used to pull forward an entire system about which you really do not know anything. But all the time you're doing this with self-sacrifice towards the light. Okay, but even in these systems, the light is being withheld from you. You don't progress based on your merit. You progress based on how long you've served. Mm-hmm. And before you reach your full potential, the physiological body is going to die. That means you never achieve that light that you're searching, no matter how hard you try. Now, if the light is out in the open, someone like me would dedicate their life to it, make progress that is unbelievable. I'm not restricted by some asshole who thinks he's better than me, that would tell me, be silent. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm going to give you the finger. Mm-hmm. And the knowledge is out there. I seek it through alternative means, and I have given nobody any oath. And I speak the truth, no matter what the cost. Can you claim the same thing?
Yes. You see, these are the kinds of things that people actually need to hear. Anytime you enter an organization and they tell you, keep our practices secret, don't tell anyone. That's a problem. Why? Ask the question why. Ask, at least ask. Because in this particular situation, if they tell you you're going to be persecuted, then ask them why. It's 2021. I'll move. I'll get the people out of my life that are persecuting me. I am going to have a lady on this broadcast very soon. Her name is Donna. And Donna has been a witch her entire life. And Donna is in her 60s. So you know Donna had to get rid of a whole bunch of people, because once people hear that word, all puns intended, it doesn't conjure images of happiness and everything else. But I have to say that community has got to be one of the more genuine communities that I've actually had the pleasure of knowing. Yes. I'm sorry.
And David, just for our esteemed audience, please enlighten us on the meaning of witch, where it comes from and what it means.
Oh my God. You see, that's part of my quiz. So they'll be sure to get 1 out of 10 when I deploy this quiz. The meaning of the word witch is wise. Wise. You have to be wise. And it's not wise as in, oh, I know stuff. It's wise in, I know stuff. Yeah. It doesn't mean that I can recite the Book of Shadows to you. It means that I know stuff. Okay, so what I want to do with regard to the audience in terms of talking about solutions is systems of domination control. As long as there are 2 people in the room, there's going to be some kind of domination and control happening if these people are not introspective. So when you join these groups, Be sensitive. I mean, critically think about, there a hierarchy in place? And where am I on the totem pole? You're probably going to be at the bottom, right? And I understand that, because if you want to join a school, you're going to be a Bachelor of Science, an undergraduate, and they're going to tell you, because when I was an undergraduate, my professor said to me, yeah, when you're an undergraduate, you don't get a right to an opinion. He said that to me when I
So
was in
it's the
school.
same
You don't have a right to an
minded.
opinion when you're an undergraduate. When you become a master student, you may have a right to an opinion. A PhD student, absolutely, you have a right to an opinion. But an undergraduate, no, you don't have the right to an opinion. That was said to me. I found that hilarious. Okay,
Absolutely.
because what I was trying to write an essay. The whole reason this came up was, this is systems of domination and control in academics, in
Yes.
academia.
Yes.
What I wrote an essay on Sigmund Freud. For those of you who don't know who Sigmund Freud is, the father of modern psychoanalysis, that's what they say. But he got his theories by hypnotizing a random quarter sample of the German population. And so, a lot of his theories are very, very uncomfortable, extremely uncomfortable. The Oedipus complex is one of them. Very familiar with them. Basically, I don't. Let me give you the short history of Oedipus. This king got his prophecy that his son would eventually kill him. So, simple solution: let's just kill the son, so that I get to live. Sent this guy to kill his son. Guy takes the son, puts him on a river, goes down the river, and ends up in another kingdom where the king and the queen have trouble conceiving a child. Take the child out of the water, raise them as their own. Child becomes a proficient huntsman, goes hunting, hunts, doesn't know where he is, hunts on the king's land and encounters this arrogant prick, kills the arrogant prick, who, plot twist, happens to be his father. And in the Greeks had some really messed up concepts, so he killed the father, so he inherited the father's kingdom, not knowing that was his father that he killed. Okay? I forgot to add something here. There's this prophet that keeps coming and telling people bad news throughout the entire Greek tragedy tradition. Okay, there's this prophet, right? Was this Tiresias? I believe the name is Tiresias, right? And he comes and he gives people bad news. So this guy, Oedipus, he gets everything that the guy owned, the king owned, right? And that includes his wife, who, plot twist, is Oedipus's mother, right? Oedipus then marries his mother, a couple years of marital bliss, and the prophet comes visiting again, has some dinner, sits down, shoots the shit, and says, "Oh, by the way, that's your mother, and the guy you killed, that's your dad." Okay, so Oedipus went properly mad, cut his eyelids, and walked out into the desert, and that's the last we hear of him. So Freud has this theory that all young boys develop a dislike for their father because they secretly want their mothers. So the premise of my essay at that time was, yo, if I had a problem such as adult bedwetting, and then I found out that at the root of it all was that I secretly want my mother, I would have a bigger problem than bedwetting. That was the basic premise of that's the basic premise of my essay, right? And so and so yeah, that would mess me up. I mean, like, that would mess up anybody, right? So well, probably not anybody, but most people it would. And so I decided. So he says, no, I'm going to give you a low mark on this essay because no, you don't get to have an opinion as an undergraduate. So he stifled my developing theory there. And so this is basically suppression in academics because they don't want you to have an opinion. What's happening in the US school system is that you have the entire school system overrun with political agendas from left and right.
Absolutely.
And
Yes, yes.
they keep down people's thought patterns because you just have to go
Absolutely.
into this little
David,
comfort zone.
I want to add something here. Again,
Sure.
perfectly in alignment to your experience. So let's imagine a person with no integrity,
Mhm.
a proper asshole.
Mhm.
They can pay fees. They go to university, get a bachelor's degree.
Mhm.
Nothing changes. Passing exams doesn't give you integrity. They
Mhm.
got more money, so they do a master's. Again, learning, reading text, and passing exams don't give you integrity.
Mhm.
The person has more money, so they do a PhD, and now they're a doctor, this and that, but still writing a thesis and doing some research, wasting time, having parties doesn't give you integrity. So you entered an asshole, and now you're an educated asshole.
That's the
You're an
worst thing in the
asshole.
world. Oh my God.
Right. An
That,
educated asshole.
you just described half of the legal profession. You do realize that, right?
So you see, ladies and gentlemen, the same problem is it's in every area of our life. Hierarchical systems. As long as you go one step further, you have more power, more influence, so-called knowledge. But the root problem that the individual is an asshole with no integrity never gets addressed.
Correct.
Now imagine that person goes into a position of power and has control over the selection of the young minds that come in.
Like a politician.
There you go. So they don't make selections based on merit, based on potential, based on how hard the person works. Other things come in. So meritocracy goes out of the window. That's how the system becomes polluted. And once this evil seed has taken root, perpetually the whole system is corrupt. You've got to pull the damn thing out of its roots and start with a system that's based on integrity.
Mm-hmm.
Look at anybody in power that influences your life in any way in a hierarchical system. Is there selection and progression based on their merit, on how perfectly they do their job, or are other things involved here? If the answer isn't merit and how good they are at their job, how much integrity they have, how much trust you can bestow upon them without them abusing it, well, we're in the mess that we see. So it's not just about secret societies. They're a less known part of the problem, but the same thing goes on in many, many different areas: academia, medicine, law,
religion.
Politics, religion, yes, and also, by the way, secret societies. So let's talk about what would be the healthy alternative. There's nobody above thinking they're better than everyone while they're really an educated asshole.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to quote the words of Andrew Bartzis, my honored master. Equal co-creation, non-competition,
correct,
non-hierarchical order. What David and I are doing is equal co-creation. Neither one of us thinks we're better than the other or higher than the other, right? This is done with absolute love towards ourselves and towards you, esteemed audience. We're enjoying the hell out of ourselves doing what we're doing. At the end of the show, we're buzzing like crazy. And yes. I hope that this is passed to you. So look at the system. Is it done with a spirit of
collaboration over competition?
Yeah, or no? So if it's not that, then you're gone to the way of the dark side. Hierarchical order for an entity, pyramidal structure, which cares nothing about even the top, because the whole mechanism is a cart that's being pulled by all these horses and somebody else is riding it. And that entity riding it is not a very beautiful entity.
No, it is. It never is. And for those of you who are seeking esoteric power in the astral realm, because this is another aspect that we absolutely need to cover here, and we're going to cover this in a very short way. For those of you seeking power in the astral realm, and I'm talking about the brothers who are part of the societies, I'm talking about the practitioners of magic, the practitioners of sorcery, and so on. You are not seeing the big picture. I am going to quote a book that you probably don't give much regard to, the Holy Bible. Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and then all things will be added unto you. A lot that goes over so many people's head. right? Because if you want something more esoteric sounding, off the top of my head, I'm going to say, if therefore thine eye be single, thy entire body will be filled with light. So let me explain to you and break that down in normal layman's terms, because it's so nice to say these lovely cliches that you guys, some of you all have a whole library of these little cliches and these little sayings in your head, and it makes you feel good to say them. But let me explain to you what that means. It means that seek first enlightenment, and then all these powers, cognition, precognition, or automatic writing, whatever you're trying to develop, divination, whatever, will be added on to you. But you need to seek the enlightenment first of all. You need to be not an asshole, as Amir said. First of all, do that first, and then everything will be added on to you. There are many mansions in my Father's house, and the Father's house is yourself. So keep inside the self and try to develop the self, try to develop the character, and all those things that the Lodge professes to develop. Character, excellence of character, excellence of mind, body, and spirit. Okay?
Absolutely.
And once you seek that, first of all, then everything else will be added onto you. It becomes easy. I know a young lady who's been trying for many, many years to astral project. I had to ask her, but why? Right? I had to ask that question, but why? And she says, you have a Lucia light. It's a device that can induce those things if used correctly. Put me under it. I'm like, but why? She says, I'll pay you. No. Because if I was not inclined before, you telling me that you're going to pay me to help you astral project, that will definitely, you will not get any response out of me. None. And after a while, she got really, really frustrated. And I said to her, why are you trying to astral project? Because I want to see what other people see. I want to be there. I want to be there. I want to be able to do what other people do. I mean, there's a lot of people in the group that she's in who astral project, and I said to her, um, that's all. So it's kind of like you want to take a trip down to Mexico, to Cancun, the Caribbean. Is that you want a sightseeing trip? And she says yes. I said, well, you're probably not doing it for the right reasons, and you're trying to force it. And esoteric development does not come by force, because it comes by sincere effort of will. May I highly suggest that you stop looking and let things come to you.
Bingo. Oh my God, yes.
Stop looking, stop forcing, and let things come to you. A lot of y'all seek esoteric power. It has been my experience that a little bit of patience, and at the least expected time, boom, all of a sudden you realize, oh, wow,
Yes.
that was simple. Because
okay,
honestly,
because
if it's not simple, then it probably isn't genuine. A lot of y'all think that y'all have, look, listen to me, that's an old Catholic tale, isn't it? You got the whip and you whipping yourself over the back, self-flagellation, and you're putting out the effort. You're not going to get anywhere. All right, have some compassion for yourself, for your body, for your mind, for your psyche, and stop trying to do things fast. A lot of y'all go to ayahuasca ceremonies because y'all want the quick fix. God damn it to hell. Please stop doing that. That thing gives you like many, many years of psychotherapy in one night. You really think you can handle it?
Oh, that's absolutely right. And it'll kick your butt. It'll turn you inside out. It'll twist you in ways that you may break. So I completely agree with you, David. And again, the lady wanting to astral travel to see what people are doing. Most of the time, people are sitting on the couch in their shorts, eating Cheetos, watching TV, being all disgusting. Even if she could watch this, seriously, oh my God, people are boring, man. I mean, I can tell you this by experience. if she would have told you, okay, I want to go and watch the pyramids being built. I want to watch the Maya at the peak of their civilization. Okay, I can understand that. You're right? And if she said, okay, I'll give you all my worldly belongings, please just give me away, I want to know. That would be more noble. But come on, how much people watching can you do before you actually get disgusted and say, okay, I got better shit to do? What is it? It's like, a thing that comes to mind. In Brazil, nudity is very common. You see tourists flying in, all drooling with their eyes wide open. Second week, it's all whatever, right? So you're passionate about something that's really not so exciting.
Correct.
And again, they're coming from it from the wrong place with the wrong motives. The motives that are, again, designed by a system that has lack built into it, that lack mentality. And something that came to my mind, I'd like to say to these hierarchical organizations and their esteemed members, my brothers and sisters. We're all human, we're all in this for the same reason, enlightenment, true light. Now, the infinite universe, logically, has infinite knowledge. And although integrity has been intentionally driven out of our systems of selection, I can tell you this, that the divine cosmos cares very, very much about integrity. And there are levels of knowledge, power, enlightenment, whatever you want to call it, let's just call it light, that are not bestowed upon you unless you prove irrefutably in action that you are worthy. How can you be worthy if you close your eyes to the suffering of your fellow man? You are unworthy by very definition.
Correct.
So in that kind of approach, you're limited to some ancient unknown instead of connecting to the living infinite.
Thank you so much for that point. I also want to bring a bit of humility to the lodge brothers with the pearls before swine commence and calling people profane and men of the stream. Listen to me very carefully. Whenever I have these kinds of discussions, I'm always greeted by a barrage of what the lodge has done, the inventions that they've brought to humanity, and the citadels that they've built. The Freemasons are credited with building some of the marvels of our modern time. Let me explain something to you. The raw materials for all of those projects y'all got from these profane people. Y'all could not have done it without them. The raw materials and the labor that was put into building these temples that y'all are so proud of were given to you guys, were brought to you guys by regular people. Okay? The swine that you're talking about, have respect. Seriously.
And David,
stop saying those things.
You see, not only have people built these monuments, if not for people, if you take away people for a single day, they will not function. So their continued existence and function depend on these people.
Correct. It does. This is the last one I want to leave you with. We've reached our time. Amira, is any final words? And we're going to wrap this up.
Let's wrap it up in a knot and tie a nice little bow on it like a beautiful little present. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow humans, seekers of the light, first and last, there's one thing that matters. Integrity. 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 And that is all.
Thank you so much. And I concur with everything that Amir just said. Integrity first, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven within yourself, and all things will be added on to you, my brothers and sisters. I want to close this with this a little plug for UCM. This video is being posted in the UCM app. Download it. It's on the UCM network. It's also being posted on our video site. Please join the video site. You just go there, click, and there's login or register, the little head in the top right-hand corner, and you can join or register. It is definitely worth it. We have I think we've represented every genuine esoteric movement that there is out there. So if you guys are interested, everything is in video form and it's laid out in front of you. It's a little later on this year, we'll be starting an esoterics course, which you absolutely should consider getting into, buying into, because a lot of y'all go spend a lot of money elsewhere. But the knowledge you're going to be getting here is everybody else's knowledge. We are not discriminating. We are going to put everything out there as much as we can. And it's not like, there's such a thing as copyright infringement for spiritual principles. Seriously. So, this is what we're going to be doing. And we look forward to seeing you in part 4 of our little talk show that we have here. And yeah, join us next time. Take care.